geometry and how we can use three-dimensional geometry to locate points in space. Points in space are located with reference to three lines on a three-dimensional XYZ plane. A three-dimensional XYZ plane has got three axes: the X, the Y, and the Z axis. The X, the Y, and the Z axis represents the commonly known as length, width, and heights that we find in three-dimensional figures. It is the length, width, and height that we normally use to find volume or capacity of three-dimensional objects. So the aim of this presentation is to learn how to apply the concept of three-dimensional in finding capacity of three-dimensional objects. So let us begin this way. The idea begins with a two-dimensional XY plane where we normally locate points beginning with X followed by Y. This is a three-dimensional XY plane. It has got three axes, as you can see, and there is a point here. It is located with lines that refers the three axes. This is how the plane is formed. There is three planes that meet at 90 degrees. So you can see these lines here are making 90-degree angles. They are made by the planes XY, YZ, and XZ. So where all the three planes meet, the center of their meeting point is what we call the origin. All points are located with reference to the origin. So the axes have got positive and negative sides, where they are labeled X dash, Y dash, and Z dash is the negative side of the axis, and where they are labeled X, Y, and Z are the positive sides of the axis. So you can see there is positive sides and negative sides of the axis. This plane is the XY plane. When it crossed with the this is the YZ plane, and this is the XZ plane. Together, the three planes will make 8 parts known as octants. In those 8 parts is where objects can be located. So you can see this image is actually moving around the 8 portions of a three-dimensional XYZ plane. Right now this image is in the first octant. So let us see how we can trace points in space on three-dimensional XYZ plane. Look at this point. You must name the X coordinate followed by the Y coordinates followed by the Z coordinate. In fact, this is the shortest distance. These values X, Y, and Z are representing shortest distance from the origin. So this distance is a distance along the X-axis. This line should be perpendicular to this plane. And this line is the distance along the y-axis. And this is the distance along the z-axis. So you begin by x, followed by y, followed by z. And then you pinpoint the point. Any xy plane can move around, as you can see. Look at how you can trace point P in space. This is the reverse order. Distance along z-axis, that is PQ. QR is this distance along y-axis, and RO is distance along the x-axis. Now, the correct order to name this point is beginning with x, followed by y, followed by z. You will get the coordinates x, y, z. So, look again how you can trace any point in space. Begin with x, distance along x-axis, followed by distance along the y-axis, followed by the distance along the z-axis. So there, point P is located in space. A point on the x-axis will have coordinates x00. In this case, this point here is having coordinates 600. It means the distance along x is 6, but along y and z respectively is 0. A point on the y-axis will have coordinates 0, y, 0. Distance along y is known, but along x and z is unknown. It is actually 0. So this point here is on the xy plane. It is having coordinates x, y, and 0. So the point here is at a distance of 2 units on x, 2 units on y, and 0 on z. A point on the yz plane will have 0, y, and z, meaning distance on x is 0, on y is known, and z is known. So let us see how a point in space is responsible for making a three-dimensional figure. This plane was moved along x, and this is moving along y. This other plane is moving along the z-axis, so the planes meet at this point. So this point is made by the distance x followed by y followed by z, and the result is a three-dimensional object. All three-dimensional objects are made by points in space on three-dimensional xyz planes. So that is point P. Look again, those are the portions or the octants of any three-dimensional xyz plane. Any point located anywhere on the three-dimensional xyz plane can be located. Look at this point. It is at a distance of 2 units on x, negative 3 units on y, and 3 positive units on the z-axis. This demonstrates that you can locate any